Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me on Sunday night here before Labor Day. This is Tom Frumming, aka TF Twins. We are going to do our system recap for tonight. So, we're going to talk about the Twins game. We're going to talk about the minor leagues, run through some information. We will get to a chat. So, if you're here live, we will do some chat later. If you're watching on replay, stick around. We're going to get right into it. So, not going to waste a bunch of time. Actually, let's just get right into Twins highlights. Pull that up here. The Twins played the Rangers, concluding their series today. And Mitch Garver, in the first inning, hits a 3-run home run with 2 outs. You see there, Kenta Maeda just can't get through that first inning without giving up that 3-run bomb to our old friend Garv Sauce, who has been feeling it, especially against the Twins. But Royce Lewis, our boy, goes oppo to tie the game up with a 3-run homer of his own in the top of the 5th inning. The Twins showed a lot of fight today. They came back from multiple deficits. But here we see Cole Sands. This was a backbreaker. This was like the third run-scoring wild pitch of the week for the Twins. And the next pitch he gets out of the inning, the next pitch he got out of that inning, they wouldn't have scored a run. Then Mitch Garver gets him the next inning in the bottom of the 7th. So Garver with 2 home runs today against the Twins. But once again, he and Lewis were sort of going blow for blow almost as Royce delivers a game-tying single that scores Jordan Luplow, tying it up at 5. But at the end of the day, it's Josh Winder versus Adolis Garcia. Oh, my God. I think this was I don't think I realized how far that home run went the first time I saw it. I'm sorry. So you can see the relief. That team has been struggling, man. Texas has been up against it. You could see the relief as that ball came off of his bat, off of Garcia's bat, that they didn't get swept here. Twins cannot complete the sweep. I would still call this a successful weekend series at Texas. They take the series 2-1. Let's pull up the pitching stats for the Twins. Again, Kenta Maeda started this one. He was struggling. He was fighting it. I think if you would have said, he's going to go 5 innings and only give up those 3 runs after that first inning, I think people would be surprised by that. He only strikes out 3, walks 2 guys, gives up that Garver homer. And again, if he just gets Garver out there, he gives up no runs potentially. So 9 hits in 5 innings. So yeah, Kenta was not his most sharp, but I thought he battled out there. I thought he competed really well. And of course, on Saturday, the Twins had to invest a lot of bullpen capital into winning that game. Thank goodness they won that game, or else it would have been sort of a double blow, 1-2 punch. But that kind of put them at a tough spot today. We knew we were going to see some of Cole Sands, and again, he gives up the 2 runs. Really, that wild pitch was just killer. If we could go back and get that one back, man. But Cody Funderburk delivered another scoreless inning. And then Winder, that was the first batter of that inning, the Garcia home run. It's a shame, too, because both Sands and Winder have been pitching really well of late. Actually, I've got some information on that here. Cole Sands, his last 6 games, he had given up a run, but 0 earned runs. It was 1 unearned run. So a 0 ERA, an opponent's OPS of 422 in that 6-game stretch. Josh Winder, kind of a similar situation. The last 3 appearances, but 7 innings where he had not given up a hit. No runs, 2 walks, only 4 strikeouts in there. But again, an opponent OPS of 0.87. Now, even with those guys really rolling, I don't think you're ever going to feel super comfortable with Cole Sands and Josh Winder in there in big situations at this point, at least. Maybe down the road they'll prove themselves some more, but this was an opportunity for them. This was a big opportunity for them to kind of show that they're ready for the next step, and they both fell flat. So that was disappointing to see out of those guys. Twins really needed somebody to step up there. As for the lineup, I was pretty proud of how these guys fought back all game. They pulled the same thing. They've been doing this quite often, the lineup of late. Lineup's been so much better in the second half. You see a 3-hit night for Royce Lewis, a 3-hit night for Carlos Correa, Unfortunately, Correa hit into a huge inning-ending double play to give him the Twins single season record for double plays, and really was a gut punch in the game. But again, a 3-hit night for him, so can't pin too much on him. Actually, we might pull this up later, but I would say Christian Vasquez was kind of the killer. 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. I think he was 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. Left 8 men on base. Did Christian Vasquez. Ouch. Ouch. So, it would have been awesome. It would have been awesome for the Twins to win today. Cleveland lost today. So, luckily they didn't lose any ground, but they could have, gained some ground with a win here. So that was too bad. But again, I think you're taking 2 out of 3 at Texas. That's a good outcome for the Twins. They're going to be going to Cleveland now. So that's going to be a massive series, obviously. With Cleveland trying to stay alive. I know the odds. I know what we're looking at here in terms of the Twins having a pretty comfortable lead in the division, with the Twins having a very advantageous schedule compared to Cleveland the rest of the way out here. But it's hard for me to get comfortable, man. It's hard. Again, everything looks like the Twins should be in good shape. Obviously this next series is going to decide a lot. But the Twins are in good shape. But they got to win this thing. They got to put Cleveland away. They have to beat these teams. After Cleveland, the Twins have a lighter stretch, certainly, than the Guardians do the rest of the season. But a lot of these teams that are out of it, this is their World Series at this point. If you're a losing team, you have nothing to play for, on your own season. Well, at least you could ruin somebody else's year. So these teams aren't going to just roll over. These teams are going to put up a fight. So the Twins have to keep playing hard. And I guess that was the silver lining for today, was I thought that they competed. They went out there, came back, and erased multiple deficits. And at the end of the day, couldn't get the job done. So, there are no consolation prizes. You don't get like a half point in the standings or anything for that. But let's check out some more highlights, switching gears over to the Saints highlights. And here's Alex Kirilloff with an opposite field home run that just gets out of CHS Field off the top of the wall. Figure he's got to be rejoining the Twins for this Cleveland series, I'd imagine. He's looked good. He's been playing every day. Brooks Lee, we are here in the bottom of the 9th inning with the Saints trailing by a run with 2 outs, game on the line. And Brooks Lee, I think this was his 3rd or 4th hit of the game, goes opposite field with a home run to extend the game, goes into extras. We will check back in on that. It wasn't looking good in extra innings, but looking good. Brooks Lee with a monster night for the Saints. Take a look at some of the performances. Again, the Saints game was kind of finishing up. We will go and circle back and check in on that. It was in progress when I put this together. But from the rest of the system, Tanner Schobel with a 2-hit night, Jose Salas with a 4-hit night, and Walker Jenkins was 2 for 4 with a triple for the Mighty Muscles. Just an incredible start to his career. Jaw-dropping, really, as an 18-year-old kid hitting in the Florida State League. Over to tonight's starting pitchers. Again, we'll circle back to that Saints game. But you see Travis Adams, Christian McLeod, and Ben Etheridge were the starters tonight. I'll go 5 innings. And as far as the results go, as we discussed, Twins lost, Wind Surge win, Colonels win, Muscles lose. And there are the records there. So let's pull up that Saints game. Bear with me just a moment here. So again, Brooks Lee hits the home run to extend that game, take it into extra innings. Unfortunately, things got a little rough from there. The Saints give up 8 runs in the top of the 10th. Killer. 8 runs in the top of the 10th to lose. So Brooks Lee's big hit was all for naught, unfortunately. Okay, you can see that. Good deal. So Lee, he had a 4-hit night, though. Brooks Lee with a 4-hit night, 4 for 5, had that huge home run. He also had a triple in this one. Again, Alex Kirilloff played first base, was 2 for 4. Didn't play the complete game, but I wonder if that was in order to be able to get out of St. Paul in time. I don't know. Who knows? I should also call out that there was a transaction today. Michael A. Taylor went on the injured list, and Willie Castro returned to the team. Patrick Murphy was the guy who started for the Saints today. He goes 5 2/3, gives up 2 runs, walks 4, strikes out 5. And it was a combination of Michael Boyle and Andrew Bechtold that got roughed up late there, unfortunately. So that's too bad. That's too bad. The Saints are in a very tight playoff race right now in the International League. Crazy situation. They're probably going to have the best record in their division this year, but the qualifications for the postseason are based off of first half and second half. And there was a team better than them in the first half. Right now, I'm guessing with this loss, they're also not leading in the second half. So the Saints, unfortunately, just the way that things have gone for them, I believe they're on the outside looking in. But again, there's some time. The AAA season does go a bit further than some of these lower down leagues. So hopefully they can get back in gear. But that's a tough loss tonight for them and their postseason hopes. Do you want to pull this up? Going over to Fangraphs for the Twins game. And again, you can kind of see in this win expectancy chart how back and forth it was. The Mitch Garver homer really gives Texas an advantage, but Royce erases that. And then it's just back and forth there for a while. The last 3 innings, really. And unfortunately, Twins cannot hold on. Let's see. Wanted to call out in the play log the lowest win probability added moment of the game was that Carlos Correa double play. This was the top of the 8th inning. Bases were loaded. Correa hits into a inning-ending double play. Again, he had a nice night overall. Was not among the bottom 3 in win probability added for the game for the Twins because he had 3 hits, drove in a run. Christian Vasquez again was not good tonight. He was one of the bottom 3 along with Sands and Winder. Unfortunate game for the Twins. All right. Let me jump into the chat here and pull up that chat overlay. So that wraps up what we would usually be discussing on the system recaps. Let me know what kind of questions you have, what kind of thoughts you have, what kind of reactions you have from the action today. Again, Twins still hold a 5-game lead in the Central. Thank goodness. Heading into Cleveland. Thank goodness. Yeah, Donnie Barrels, man. He's been a great bargain. Absolutely, John. And making that catch in the field, at this point, I'm not too surprised when he's, doing his thing, spraying the ball all over, taking good at bats. Really, along with Jorge Polanco, those 2 guys really are the ones that are really a pain in the neck in this lineup in that regard. They're making that catch at second base. This was last night. He was drawn in infield. He had to go back and catch it over his shoulder. That was tremendous. I say he's been great. Absolutely great. Charlie asks what the Twins do on the pitching side of the roster in the offseason. Yeah, it'll be interesting. They're pretty well set compared to what we're used to, I would say. Keeping in mind that Chris Paddock should be, ready for a regular full ramp up. So that's kind of a nice little boost that they have coming in. And obviously Pablo's under a contract long-term as well. Joe Ryan's going to be around. And obviously Ober and Varland, maybe they're primed to take a bigger step up. We shall see. Chris Vasquez is signed until 2025. Can't exactly let him walk. Yep. And I think Christian Vasquez, this stuff is hard to quantify. I would bet you anybody internally would have a lot of good things to say about things that he does that don't show up in a box score. I think I would guess he's a part of the reason why the pitching has been so good this year. I would guess too, he might be part of why Ryan Jeffers has taken a step forward this year. But no denying that he has been awful at the plate. Just awful. Yeah. Been rough. Yeah, and John mentions Paddock willing to be pitched out of the pen yet this year. They haven't really, or at least I haven't seen it, that they haven't specifically addressed how they're going to be ramping him up. He should be starting a rehab assignment. I think it was in Fort Myers any day now. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. But yeah, I think they're realistic about it. I mean, they might do the thing where they kind of have him start as he ramps up, and then see where he has a role. You never know. You never know with pitching, especially. You never know what might happen. So we'll see. My opinion on Jose Miranda, I'm willing to give Miranda a free pass, to be honest, this year. If you remember all the way back to spring training, he was only DHing and getting some days off because his shoulder was sore. And why is he out for this long? His shoulder injury. So I'm almost inclined to give him kind of a free pass on his performance this year and reevaluate next year. But it's certainly not a thing. I mean, you can't like create a job for him for next year. And like kind of like they did coming into this year, they opened the door for him at third base for him to take that and run with it, at least until Royce returned. Obviously that did not work out as well as they had hoped. So I don't think they can do that for next year. I'm not saying that. And, Jose has options. So he can go back to the minors if it's sort of like a Bailey Ober situation where there's just not enough room. There's no room for him. But I'm still pretty positive about Jose Miranda. I still like Jose Miranda a lot. I think he would have been a really nice piece in this lineup because he doesn't strike out that much. And he can do some damage. So I think losing him was a pretty big blow, but obviously now that Royce is back and a superstar, another crazy game for Royce Lewis. So it's not like they're missing him too much, but I do think there is better days ahead for Jose Miranda. And I think he proves himself at some point. And yeah, I do think it may be kind of a lazy take, but I'm going to take it. I'm just going to say I'm writing this off this whole year because I'm not sure he was ever right all season. So we'll see. Yeah, a lot of the offensive auditions have been terrible. And then the other guys that were kind of around the fringes have been great. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Michael A. Taylor, although he's still below league average offensively, this is a career year for him. He's been great. Donovan Solano, Willie Castro. Yep, and those guys have also been showing up on a regular basis too and stayed healthy for the most part. I know Willie's coming back from the IL now, but he's been a pretty consistent contributor to this team. Yep, Andrew, Willie made it back from the injured list, and Michael A. Taylor went down in the 10 days. Yeah, that was the big transaction of today. I wonder what they're going to do tomorrow, because now that I was expecting that Andrew Stevenson would probably go out when Willie came back, but now that Taylor's gone, they kind of need more center field, so he's probably good. Are we going to get the Joey Gallo transaction? I mean, it's probably either him or Jordan Luplow. So I'm thinking that Kirilloff is probably back tomorrow. That's not any kind of inside information I'm speculating off of. Maybe there's still some more boxes they want him to check on that rehab assignment, but I think I would bring him back tomorrow. And I think the two most obvious guys that stand out to potentially lose their role at this point will be Luplow or Gallo. Depending who pick your favorite there. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think maybe Gallo clears. I think he maybe survives on the roster the rest of the year somehow. It seems like every time he gets kind of tight, every time that it might turn to Gallo going, there's like another guy that gets injured like Taylor, and he gets kind of a new lease on life. So, if he's out there, we'll keep crossing our fingers that he can turn things around and look like he did in April, but man, it gets tiring, gets old. Alexander, do you like the Twins or the Guardians more? It seems kind of obvious, but question on moving Varland to the bullpen. Why not do the same for Festa? I mean, the big difference there is Louis Varland has way more experience at the major league level. So you don't really have to worry about him coming up and having the situation be too big. Festa, his arm is like major league potential, but and he's on a roll right now. So, this doesn't apply to his last couple weeks, but for most of the season down in Double-A, he was not dominant. He wasn't even that good for a lot of the year down in Double-A, David Festa. And, if you're not consistently dominant at Double-A, even though his pitches look tremendous, I love his delivery. Great movement, great velocity, but it's kind of almost like a much better version of Jordan Balzovic in Double-A. You could have said a lot of those same things about him. So he's still been working to put it all together. Now it looks like these last couple weeks he has, his last couple games at Double-A, coming into Triple-A, at an unbelievable Triple-A debut, David Festa. So stuff wise, if you want to try to make the argument that he has a better repertoire than some of the guys in the Twins right now, I think I would agree with you. But you don't know. It's hard to know how these guys are going to react to that coming up in the majors. If they're going to try that, they should try that as soon as possible, so they have some runway with him. And they can experiment in September instead of trying to do that in October. But I don't hate it. I wouldn't. That's not a button I would go to push yet with Festa. But yeah, it's clear Louis Varland is a major league arm, and when you're looking at what else is there on the MLB roster, I think it's even kind of further accentuated that Louis Varland could help this team. So I think that's why that's the big difference between those two conversations. But I wouldn't be totally dismiss the idea of throwing Festa out there, because again, I love his pitches. If they feel like they have him pointed in the right direction now, he could be a weapon for sure. What's Nick Gordon's future? He's out of options, so if he gets healthy, he was kind of expecting to come back at some point this month. If he gets healthy, the Twins have to put him on the active roster, or he's going on waivers. Now, we're in this weird spot where, anybody on waivers at this point can't be on a postseason roster, but would there be some even non-playoff teams that would claim Nick Gordon possibly? So I think, I think they're probably trying to convince Nick Gordon, you sure your leg's all right? You think you can go on rehab assignment? I don't think so. I think you probably need another week or two. I don't think you're going to make it back. I think they would like Nick Gordon to not make it back this year. Does he stick around beyond this year? I don't know. I mean, he's a great depth piece, but being a left-handed hitter, he doesn't complement a lot of the other pieces on the roster now. Now some of those things might change, of course, going forward. But I look at Austin Martin, and I kind of think he's a right-handed hitting premium version of Nick Gordon in some ways. They could very easily, and they have Willie Castro too, who kind of, might fit into that super sub role. We'll see. I love Nick Gordon. And I think he's a great clubhouse presence for this team. And I think that's why he's been around. If you've seen in the dugout during games they show, he's been, when they're at home especially, he's been around a lot because I think they just love having him around. So, but at a certain point, they're going to have to make a call on him. Alexander asked, do I think Correa is a bust? I mean, I'd have to admit that his year this year is a bust for sure. But I think, not knowing a ton about plantar fasciitis, I think I had it for a while once when I was 16, 17 years old, and it sucked. But, being so young, and I was able to rest it up, it went away. And if you read about that injury, it's so different from person to person. I certainly believe that has had a great impact on his season this year. And that should not be a long-term injury. Now he has the ankle that's a concern. Now there's this foot. Maybe it's not plantar fasciitis going forward. I think I'm mispronouncing that too. Give me a break here if I am, please. I think I was. Anyway, he might just like it wouldn't be surprising if some lower body injuries become kind of a theme. We've seen that with Jorge Polanco. That's been a thing with kind of Luis Ariz. But at this point, it's sort of similar to the Miranda thing that I said. He's had it all year. Chris had it all year. This season has been so outside of his performance from the rest of his career that I'm kind of willing to say that, we can kind of write that off. I don't personally feel like if you're projecting out Carlos Correa that you should look at this year and be like, well, this is what this guy is, if that's what you're asking. Now, is he going to live up to his contract necessarily? I think it's tough because whenever you sign these guys to big deals, you are expecting that production at the front end of that contract. And you're that toward the end of that contract, they're not going to be as good. They're going to be getting older. It's going to be harder for them to live up to that performance. That's just something you just have to accept it. That's the going rate. That's the price to get superstar guys. So it's a pretty big blow to his, how he's going to live up to this contract that in year one, it's been this bad. So, but I still, again, I feel good about him getting back. How old? He's still pretty young too. So, it's not like he's, approaching his mid 30s or anything. Gosh, how old is he? He is 28. 28 still. He turns 29 on the 22nd. Man, that's crazy. He's been around forever. It feels like, and he's 28. Yeah, and Tim points out Correa is still really good in the field. He's missing a little bit of range, but his arm, man, God, I love watching him throw. It's incredible. I love watching Correa throws. And even though his mobility is a bit down, I think he's still really good in the field too. I agree with that. And I think too, like, it's unfortunate that he's been hitting better lately. But it's kind of unfortunate that he hasn't moved down in the lineup a little bit sooner. It's almost like that's accentuated, his performance is that he's been hitting the middle of the lineup all year too. It's frustrating. Somebody called out. My chat isn't working as it usually does. But I saw somebody call out Max Kepler, and potentially doing a long-term deal with him. But remember, they have an option for next year for Max Kepler. I don't know. I mean, that option is looking like an absolute slam dunk to pick up. It's because he's been unreal, and I am amazed. I am shocked. I was wrong. Even though I was more inclined to be giving up on Gallo, even when Gallo was going pretty good. I was kind of throwing Max into that conversation as well. That was very wrong. But yeah, Max has a $10 million team option for next year. And then he can become a free agent after that. But I believe after that, the Twins can offer him the qualifying offer, assuming that is a thing. Assuming that's a thing. They change all these rules all the time. So I don't know that, what is it? Kepler is in his age 30 season. Next year will be 31. If you maybe send him that qualifying offer, maybe accepts it, you got him through 32. Or you can have that conversation on a long-term deal at that point. Once you have that qualifying offer, it kind of gives the team a lot of leverage in the window of do they accept or not accept. Because if you reject a qualifying offer, your free agent market just took a big hit because now anybody that signs you, depending on how much you're getting, anybody that would sign you would give up some kind of a draft pick. So I mean, it's insane to even. I think it's just so funny to me that I'm even suggesting that Max Kepler might be worth a qualifying offer someday. But I don't know what it is with the guy. I don't know what it is with the guy. It's hard. It's hard to say why he's been kind of up and down over his career, but he is definitely up. And Max does a lot of things well, and he doesn't strike out a lot. That's kind of a key thing when you're building a team like the Twins build. They kind of are naturally, I would say, a little bit inclined to guys that strike out a lot. That doesn't necessarily bother me on its own, but once you've built a lineup and an offense that has a bunch of these guys, I think that's when it really you have to counter that with your Solanos, with your Polancos, Kepler. Again, like I said, Miranda. I thought Miranda was going to be kind of a key piece in that picture, but yeah, Max, I think he'll be around. So I think we talked about this on a recent mailbag with Polanco. If they pick up Max's option, much like with Polanco, it's the same situation. They have so many guys at these positions. Second base, if I know Polanco's playing a little bit of third base now too, but corner outfield, so many guys, and there's only gonna be more guys with these emerging players coming in and showing they're ready for the big leagues. But you can always pick up Max's option and then trade him or someone else. It doesn't have to be him. It could be somebody you can trade from that depth and try to address some things. And, I think that's maybe an even more frustrating point to what we're left with here in the bullpen. Today's game really, hammers home that, gosh, the Twins could have really used a couple of even marginal bullpen additions who are, proven major leaguers, pitched in big spots, and they have so much depth, and it's tremendous. This is why the Twins are kind of avoiding slumps. I think for the most part, this is how they've had as good a season as they have, is because of their depth. But man, it just feels like there's quite a few guys that are kind of extra. And maybe they make some trades this offseason, but man, it's going to be hard to not look back and think, gosh, what if they just added a really good reliever at the trade deadline? I know that's not an original idea. I think pretty much about everybody has said something like that. How good is Royce Lewis, Tim? He's pretty good, man. He's pretty good. I think this guy's going to be good. What I say the other day, and that doesn't include this game, but he's on if you include his minor league numbers and his major league numbers, he was on a home run pace. He had 46 home runs over a 162 game season based off of how he's done as an active player this year. Just incredible. Ridiculous. Just crushing the ball. He's gonna probably be a pretty streaky guy. He's got some swing and miss in his game. He's got some chase in his game, but man, he can punish you. That swing he had today was great. John asked, does Lewis stick at third? I think Lewis is going to be kind of wherever you want him. I do think he'll be an option in the outfield at some point if they want to do that. If they would just want to put him at third, I think he's fine at third. He's got arm too. Talk about Correa's arm. I don't know that he has Correa level arm, but he has a big arm. I think it might come down to where they feel everybody else falls in. And right now, everybody else is Carlos Correa and Brooks Lee. Again, Correa, we talked about his defense is still plenty enough at shortstop. He's going to be there. Brooks Lee, I actually think if we're talking about between Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis, and if we assume they're all staying in the infield, I think I would like Lee better at third and Lewis at second between the two of them. But you could go either way. I don't feel super strongly either way. But the problem there is we got Edouard Julien around, and he's going to be around a while, I think. He looks amazing. And they like having him at second base, but maybe he moves to first base. I think I like that they've started to give him some looks there. It's kind of unfortunate for a guy this early in his career to have to move to such a low defensive position on the spectrum. Felt the same way about Luis Arraez too. You have a young guy, you feel like they, should be able to manage to stick at second base or, but it's just the reality of this situation is Edouard Julien's never going to be a great defensive second baseman. I think Brooks Lee or Royce Lewis could be great defensive second basemen. So I think it's just kind of natural that long term, if all those guys stay in the organization, probably Julien ends up at first base, at least more often than not. Alexander's asking, who in the system do you think could help out as a contact hitter? Brooks Lee makes a lot of contact, and he's a guy whose swing is really oriented to spray the ball around. He's being challenged. He had a great night tonight. Was it a 4-hit night? This is tough. This is a challenge for him being in AAA in his first professional season. But, he's showing, on a night like tonight, there's my automatic cat feeders. If you hear that in the background, sounds like a slot machine going off and coins falling in. I guess it is to my cats. It's the equivalent to that. Oh gosh, who else? I'm redoing I think that'll be tomorrow's Member Monday video. I think I'm going to do a prospect list update. But right now, my mind is trying to gather who the kind of the top contact guys would be who are close. Because like Junior Severino is probably the most primo do damage, hit for power guy that they have super close. He's in AAA, but he strikes out quite a bit. Hawk fan, frustrating how Lewis is barely mentioned in the national baseball media. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of surprising. Like, he's a high-profile guy, former number 1 overall pick. Great, amazing story, too, by the way. Not only the 2 ACLs, people also forget this is a guy who lost an entire year of development from the pandemic. So it's amazing the amount of crap that Royce Lewis has had to overcome. And he's so good. He's so good. And he's great on camera too. So yeah, it is kind of surprising, I guess, that but I will say, man, baseball just has a lot of stars right now and a lot of young stars. So, it might be kind of tough to break through that on the national level, but we know what's up. Yeah, and Andrews, is Brooks Lee a contact hitter to see the ball and also put the ball in play? Yeah, Brooks Lee, and he's a switch hitter. I think he's got a little bit more power from the left side, but he is a switch hitter. I think he's a more contact-oriented guy. He's more of a line drive guy. He hit that home run tonight, though, you saw. So it's not like he is without power, but he is more geared toward contact, takes good at bats, hits line drives. So I would say, you might be able to say he's kind of not exactly the prototypical type of guy that they would target. But he was just so obviously the pick where they got him. Much like Walker Jenkins, the Twins kind of have lucked out that really the last couple of first round draft picks they've had, it was just, and teams do weird stuff all the time in the MLB draft. It's incredibly hard to predict. There's rarely like a true slam dunk pick, but Brooks Lee and Walker Jenkins going where they were about as a slam dunk as you could possibly get. So the Twins really lucked out. Yeah, Kyle Farmer's been around for a while, but yeah, he's still arbitration eligible, huh? When do you think Brooks Lee is going to get called up? I mean, he could get called up this year if a big injury happened. If some big injury happened, I think that's why he's in AAA, because they want to have him ready potentially in an emergency situation. So, yeah, again, I don't think they're going to make room for him next season, and it's going to be tough for opportunities to open because the Twins have so much infield. But maybe there is a guy that they trade away that kind of creates an opportunity for him. I'm not sure, or he just forces the issue. Basically, they're really moving him along pretty quickly. And I know other teams, there's always somebody else you can point to, like the Angels have that guy, I think Nolan Samuel or whatever his name is, that they drafted this year who they're playing. So there's always guys that are going to be faster, but to have drafted a guy and have him in AAA in his first full season is pretty aggressive. And I think that tells you that the Twins are open to him being on the team next year. Most teams don't like to have prospects in AAA for too long. But that's usually because I think maybe a little opinion coming in here, but that's usually because I think the vibe at AAA is not great for the most part. Nobody wants to be in AAA. There's a lot of guys that are like 27, 28, 29, 30, older than 30 in AAA, just like hanging on. A lot of teams, the clubhouse atmosphere I don't think is as good that is in AA, where it's a little bit more of a prospect league. Guys are on the come up. But the Saints have amazing vibes. I saw their clubhouse. There's been a lot of good people putting out good stuff about their clubhouse. Trevor Larnach's mentioned that when he's been sent down, how it's so easy to kind of keep a positive mentality when you go down to St. Paul because their clubhouse is so awesome, just a positive place to be. So, but I don't think if they wanted Brooks Lee to be in AAA next year, I don't think he would have been in AAA this year. Put it that way. Not that he's going to make the opening day roster, but I would expect Lee to debut next year. Oh, how much longer on the Gallup problem? I don't know, man. Barking up the wrong tree. Charlie asked, will you think we retain Ricardo Olivar this offseason? Ricardo Olivar, talked about him a bit on that mailbag too. He's a 22-year-old, kind of primarily playing outfield now, left field, but he does catch some. He's Rule 5 draft eligible. I think they're not going to put him on the 40-man roster, but he doesn't get drafted in the Rule 5 draft. Is going to be my official prediction. It would just be so hard for a team to take a guy who's only played at low A and try to get him through a season in the majors. I think that's why he hasn't been promoted. He's having a great year. I think the Twins are kind of hiding him down there, which I like it. It's especially if they kind of accelerate his timeline next year. I think that's great. I think that's a great call on their end. Oh yeah, Andrew Stevenson his speed is absolutely legit. He stole 40-some bases in AAA, in like 100 games. His speed is definitely legit, and it's not just just foot speed. You got to also have some skill in just stealing bases, and he has both. A guy who's 29 years old has been in the major leagues. It's kind of remarkable that he's been so good. And he's a batting average over 300, OPS over 900 in AAA. I asked on Twitter if he would be the Guardians starting center fielder. And I asked that with a straight face. And I think you could make the argument that if Andrew Stevenson was in Cleveland's org, he might be their starting center fielder. Someone, I don't remember who it was. I wish I did because I should credit him. Someone commented, no, Tito's so in love with Miles Straw, he'll play him over Ken Griffey Jr. or I can't remember what the example was, but I think, Stevenson, such a great minor league signing. They're really lucky to have him. And obviously it took a lot to get to him because Michael A. Taylor's been healthy and so good this year, but what a nice guy to be able to turn to. And they have Willie Castro. I think he's fine in center field too. And y'all know I love Willie Castro. So I don't know, hopefully this kind of revives Andrew Stevenson's major league career too. He most of his time with the Nationals, maybe this can, if he doesn't stick around with the Twins, which, you don't often see even when these guys come up and do play, a lot of the times, they'll find a different opportunity the next season because the team, I don't know that the Twins necessarily want to devote a 40-man roster spot to Andrew Stevenson over the entire offseason. I would guess probably not, unfortunately. But I hope for him that, he keeps getting opportunities. He should be in the major leagues. Absolutely. It's a shame there's a lot of guys like that in their late 20s that, just kind of, once you're not a prospect and you're not super established, it's so hard to get an opportunity again. Hopefully he can, find somewhere. If it's not here, hopefully he can find in other places. He's really good. Yeah, I noticed there's kind of a discussion going on about the division not being decided yet. I know all the probabilities, and all the math that goes into that, and how, everybody's saying, if the Twins go 500, Cleveland has to do this. I still am not comfortable. I'll be completely honest with you. If I'm putting a bunch of money down, I'm putting it on the Twins, of course, having a 5-game advantage this late in the year. But I don't know, man. I saw the 2009 AL Central where the Twins came back. They were 7 down in like mid-September. Now, I think the season went more into October that year than usual, but point stands. We've seen crazier things happen before. The Twins should be fine. They should have it mostly in the bag, but they have to take it. And that's the thing that I can't let go of is that at every point that you can feel like this team has really kicked it in the gear, they'll like get swept by the Tigers the next series or something. They're just, every time they look like they're about to take off, they kind of have a false start. On the flip side, what do they have to do? What do they really have to do this? They have to avoid a complete collapse. Unfortunately, we just saw this team have a complete collapse last September, but this year they've done a really great job of avoiding those. So when they've had like that sweep at the hands of the Tigers, they'll come back and win a couple games against a good team. So they keep going out and they keep competing. They keep bouncing back. They don't have long losing streaks that turn in like what Texas is going through right now. They have not had that. Texas, my goodness, this is like 15, 20 games now that Texas is just a mess. And I realized saying that the day they beat the Twins, but point stands, the Twins still won the series at Texas. And I think Cleveland's probably going to have the tiebreaker, which they're not going to play a 163 anymore. It's going to come down to a tiebreaker if there's a tie. I mean, I think, what are the odds? 95%? Is that what the playoff odds are now? Let me see. That sounds right. It's something like that. Make playoffs. Twins, 94.1. Win division, 94 points. So 94.1%. So, I will accept that math, but, and I would generally agree with that, but baseball's weird. Weird stuff can happen. Just look at Texas. I mean, Texas was pretty comfortable in their division not that long ago. Now they're on the outside looking in. So the Twins, again, they should have it. All they have to do is take care of business, keep fighting, keep competing like they did today. I like that, and they did Saturday. I like the way they've played lately. And with the lineup going good, I think that bodes well. I think you're much more likely to have a slump, to have a big losing streak if you're not hitting. I think it's probably debatable. You could say either way. But I suppose I'm more concerned with this team having a big losing streak or a really awful month based off of how they're hitting, off of how they're pitching. Now, I understand they haven't pitched as well in the second half as they have the first half, but I trust this pitching staff, the starting staff, quite a bit. The bullpen, I like the actual back end of the bullpen when that actual back end is not available, like today, gets a little scary, but. Honestly, I haven't looked at this year's free agent class that much. Obviously, I know, Shohei Ohtani is the headliner. What I will say, there's a Rocco versus Tito discussion going on. Ask a Guardians fan what they think. That's kind of the funniest thing to me is there's 30 worse managers in baseball. Guardians fans, a lot of them hate Terry Francona, think he's garbage. And so many Twins fans think he's just this incredible genius manager. I think he's good. Do I think it makes a huge difference? I don't, to be honest with you. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that he does that drives Guardians fans insane. But this is probably it for him. Unfortunately, he's had a great career. He's having some health things going on, Francona. Unfortunately, he's getting up there, so not too surprising. That's maybe the extra sort of feeling of that I don't like is maybe there's this vibe of like, let's win one for Terry, let's win one for Tito. I don't like that feeling. Being the underdog too, I think is just like a really powerful thing in all of sports. And I think it's such a huge thing to take pressure off of you when no one is. You know, how many times do you hear that when the team, when nobody believed in us? Nobody believed in us. It's a really powerful narrative, and I think it's a lot easier in some cases to be able to be the underdog than to be the team that kind of feels like a sitting duck. So Twins just got to take care of business. You know, they're not going to get handed it. Cleveland's going to fight. These teams are playing that are terrible, even though, you know, they have a weak schedule. These teams aren't going to lay down. So, you know, the Twins are, you know, mostly a veteran team. Got to get these young guys through this. Got to keep fighting. You know, it's great that Correa is playing better of late. He had a solid game tonight. Unfortunate with that double play, but yeah, they had multiple years, the Twins did, that they had some pretty crazy comebacks, but 2009 is the one that stuck out to me. Yeah, and maybe that's where I developed this underdog thought that Chris mentions all 3 years in a row. It certainly seemed powerful when the Twins were that team chasing everybody at the end of the year. And it could say that nobody believed in us. You know, these other teams were leading all year and people wrote us off, and look at us now. Yeah, I think that's, especially in baseball where there's so much failure, you know, any kind of extra pressure you're putting on yourself is not good. So, and those are the things that, you know, Rocco and his staff and then the leaders of that clubhouse kind of need to be aware of too, is, you know, try to be aware when guys are putting too much pressure on themselves. You can't win the division each night. Can't win the division each night. You just got to go out, play the team you're playing. Can't worry about Cleveland. Well, obviously the next few games, it'll be the same thing. It will be Cleveland. But even in this series, you know, this series won't decide the division. I mean, I guess if the Twins sweep, that probably would call it. But yeah, if Cleveland sweeps the series, it's the Twins are still up a couple games. So the Twins can't. I think they do that generally. I think they focus on winning series and taking things in small pieces. That's what they need to do. They need to continue to do that. Lots of questions about Charlie Soto. I don't think he's pitched yet. I mean, there's usually guys who are really young and who may have thrown a lot of innings, or maybe there's some health concerns. A lot of them pitchers don't throw the year they're drafted. And he might throw in fall instructs. But to be honest with you, I haven't really seen anything on him. I haven't gone looking for anything, but it would not surprise me at all if Charlie Soto doesn't pitch at all this year in games, I guess I should say. Is he even 18 yet? He is. Okay. All right. I think we should wrap it up there. Lots of good questions, lots of good talk. Thanks for stopping by. Again, if you missed the system recap portion of this live stream, you can watch it on the replay. The first chunk of it was going over tonight's Twins game and the minor league action. So thanks for hanging out. Yep, I think that does it. We will talk again soon. Have a great Labor Day. If you are a channel member, be on the lookout for that Member Monday video. I'm not taking it off. If you're not a member, it's about $2 a month. You get an extra video every week from me. If you like, the description is usual, or the link to the channel membership is usually down in the description. I don't have it in this one, I don't think, but you can check it out elsewhere. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.